Hey, it feels like it's been quite some time, but I guess I know. I'm glad you're back. I guess these drives aren't always as long as I think they are, but I'm glad you come with me. I really appreciate it. How are you doing? Have you been taking the time to really take care of yourself? I hope so. I really do. So I've got 3 options for you again. Music, road ambience, or I could tell you a story. But if you're staying here, then I'm going to assume that you'd really like to hear a story. And today I want to tell you about Lilian. Lilian loved to sing, and she was good at it. You know, it was probably the dream of most kids to become a movie star or to become a celebrity, but I think that Lilian really had what it took. We'd mostly hear her singing in the shower, but every time American Idol would come on, she would sing through every single episode. Her brothers would make fun of her, but I secretly think it was because they knew they would never sing as good as she could. Then, one day, she told us real seriously that she wanted to be on American Idol. And she was already past the age where I would sort of blow off the things she would say, you know, like how kids would always be like, they'd like to be a princess or something. She was almost a young woman, and it was about time I began to take her seriously. Though I was a little wary of my 12-year-old daughter competing in a singing competition. I was concerned that she didn't understand how statistically unlikely it was that she'd get onto the show, and that she'd be gravely disappointed. A 12-year-old kid tends to be vulnerable, and going on stage and being compared to thousands of people in front of thousands of people can definitely do some damage to anyone's self-esteem, let alone a 12-year-old girl. I was afraid she'd be embarrassed or get hurt, but Daisy, my wife, she told me that I should encourage her to pursue her dreams. She's 12 after all. She's nearly a young woman, and she should be able to understand that she's competing with a lot of people and that success will take a miracle. While I was afraid of her self-esteem getting shattered, Daisy believed it would be a great life lesson for Lilian. Even though Lilian was a great singer, it was extremely unlikely she'd be put on the show. So part of me thought I didn't really have to worry about this as a possibility, but who knows? I had learned to be pretty skeptical about fame. My brother Milton had a friend in high school who I came into contact with later in life. His name was Daryl Schrawborn, and he got famous around the same time my brother went into the army. So maybe a year later, he was a young guy. He played guitar and sang country and folk music. He won a music competition in Nashville, and all of a sudden it seemed like everyone knew his name overnight. Overwhelmed by the excitement of hitting it big, Daryl quickly got an agent and started signing record deals and performing at concerts all over the country. And people started paying attention to him. And I think it got to his head. Daryl's music career ran out of speed in about a year. He was performing all over the country to thousands of screaming fans and signing autographs, and it changed him. He started doing drugs, which he had never done before he was famous, and he started cutting off people he knew for people who would, well, just tell him what he would want to hear. He began to feel, or so he told me, he began to feel like he was untouchable, like not even God could strike him down. He felt powerful until it all came crashing down because of one drug-induced evening of madness. Daryl struggled with some sort of identity crisis, having his fans adore him, or adore the him that they all knew. To him, his friends and family, all the people who helped him get where he was, were no longer worth talking to. He treated his fans like they were disposable. Like one huge collective, they were important, but as a group, as individuals, they didn't really mean anything. I mean, can you blame him? I mean, he had hundreds of them, right? This caused him to feel surprisingly alone. He let go of all the people who were really close to him, and then his fans were just one big group that worshipped him. Things got worse as he lost momentum. He was chewed up and spit out by the music industry. His fans were gone. The money could have lasted long, but he just got so flamboyant about his spending. Everything caught up to him. And this was my only experience with success. Daryl told me that the thing about fans is they worship you, but you can't ever count on them like real friends. It took Daryl a long time to get his life sorted out after the drugs. Drugs had become a seemingly permanent part of his life, and it took him a very long time to move past it. I was able to talk to Daryl again 20 years ago. He's in his 40s and he's still in rehab. He told me about the things he learned since he was young, how grateful he was that his family was still there for him. Being famous taught him things about status that he would have never learned otherwise. He told me he wished he had never signed with the recording label. He said he lost out on many years of meaningful relationships, all in the pursuit of fame and fortune. When Lilian brought up American Idol, I couldn't help but think of Daryl's experience, and I didn't want that for Lilian. I wanted her to learn at a young age that she doesn't need to be validated by the world. I didn't want her to get hurt, but more than that, I didn't want her to risk getting caught up in that world of fame and fortune and forget about what actually matters in life. And then when she sent in her audition tape for America's Got Talent and somehow got an on-stage performance, I was not very happy about that. Our family of 5 got tickets to fly out to LA, where she'd be interviewed and possibly put on the show. We heard somewhere that the hardest part of getting through was being picked from the audition tapes. After that, scoring a spot on the show wasn't too hard. While Lilian celebrated the greatest news of her life, my wife and I were contemplating what to do. Daisy wanted to support Lilian, but I told her about my fears and she understood. She told me I could trample all over my little girl's dreams, but she wasn't going to be the one to do it. I guess she wanted me to be the bad guy. So I did. It was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. And of course, Lilian was pretty upset. She cried. She told me I ruined her dreams and ruined her life. I tried to explain why I didn't want her to go, but she was too upset to listen. So I let her be. The audition date was coming soon, so was the plane ticket. Daisy and I were going to call and cancel, but then I got a call from Daryl. I told Daryl what was going on and how I had been worried for Lilian, and he told me it was good I had talked to her and that he wished his parents had done the same. But he said that his parents weren't in the picture much and that they were always involved on their business and never seemed to have the time to raise him. He said that that's probably why he was drawn to fame. Those who don't get enough love at home look for love elsewhere. This drastically changed my perception. I worried if that was the case with my daughter. Had I just not given her enough love to feel secure? Has she been looking for more love through fame? Of course, any kid her age wants to be a superstar, but perhaps I just needed to treat her more like my superstar. She was the youngest of 3 children, and I reckon she could have felt a little left out. When I look back, I guess, compared to Mark and Jacob, she did kind of raise herself. I went to Lilian's room, and I decided it was about time me and her talked about it. She was a little upset about the audition, but when I told her the reason I didn't want her to get on TV at her age, she understood, which was great because she was a 12-year-old, so I was still quite surprised. I never wanted her to feel like she wasn't loved, and if letting her go on that show was what it meant to love her and treat her like my superstar, then, well, there was only one option left for me. We ended up going to Hollywood, and she ended up passing the interview, and before long, she was getting ready for the main audition. I remember how nervous I was, and I wasn't even the one auditioning. She was singing Snow Queen in Texas in front of an audience of hundreds, and potentially a TV audience of more. While she was freaking out, I said to her that it doesn't matter where she ends up. It just matters that she does her best, and that when she walks off that stage, she's satisfied with her performance. Her mother and I would be by her side no matter what happened, and we would be proud as long as she did her best. And then she calmly walked out onto stage, and she sang her heart out. The best singing I'd ever heard in my life. An angel. And they didn't pick her. There were simply too many contestants. But she swallowed her pride, thanked them, walked off. I felt pretty bad, but I was relieved. On the way home, she said that she wasn't too sad she didn't get picked. She was glad that she went up there, gave it a shot, and didn't make a fool of herself. And then I thought to myself, man, I have raised some wonderful kids. So just remember, life will continue no matter what. All you can do is do your best and give a performance that you'll be satisfied by. And also take a break every now and then. You'll perform better if you're rested. Have a nice day. Come back and ride with me again.